The evil wizard and the prince's bride are unable to cope.
Somebody write this.
Hi, and welcome to Somebody Write This, where we use a random plot generator to give us an idea, and then we brainstorm how that could be a thing somebody might want to write. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Jenny, and to help us with our brainstorming today, we have a guest. Let's welcome Julie Hahn. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, we needed a last-minute guest replacement, and you very graciously offered to jump in the day before, or a day or two before. So I'm very excited to have you here. As we were talking before the podcast about your perspective on storytelling and stuff that really speaks to you and moves you as a storyteller, you talked about YA and middle grade books, and I think we've talked with some of our guests about YA stuff, but I'd love to hear from somebody who is a middle grade author about what makes that different. What do you have to do differently for a middle grade book than you do for something a little bit older? What do you like about that age range and writing for that?
I think it's really fun. I work at an elementary school, so I'm with a lot of the younger crowd. Everything's toned down just a little bit, but you can still have really hard and serious things happen. A lot of it you have to, instead of having it happen directly to the character, you use filtering, so it happens to somebody they know. Mm. You have to figure out a good way to sort of not have the parents be fixing all the problems, which most of the time is like, oh, I'm an orphan, but there are better ways to do it. Still have good supportive parents and make the child deal with it on their own. But it's a great way for kids to see themselves in a book.
Does the work that you do with kids in everyday life, does that inform the kinds of things that you want to write about? Do you think, okay, these kids have been talking about this a lot, I should write something about this? How do those inform each other?
So I work in kindergarten, so it's way lower than middle grade.
Much lower.
My kids are that age right now, though. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. And so that's kind of been interesting. I do see a lot of behavioral problems and stuff that just in kindergarten or throughout the school that I look at and say, that would be an interesting character, or this child, these aspects of this child would be really interesting as a character. But I watch my kids and watch them navigate friendships and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, oh, that would be good in a book.
A lot of young adult stories tend to have similar themes. We think of teens as being starting to figure out independence, and they're gonna and separating themselves from their parents. And what are some of the topics that are really, really relevant to middle grade, or something that the middle graders that you see that they really need more stories about in written thoughtfully?
A lot of middle grade books are middle grade like fantasy or kind of Harry Potter-esque, where they're, about an 11-year-old who's an orphan and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And those are great. Those are great, like sort of escapes. You can use those to teach them all sorts of relevant things, and they get excited about it because it's a fantasy world. I have been really lately into more contemporary middle grade, specifically stuff that kind of tackles hard topics, because things happen to kids still too. And It's really nice to have a way to sort of navigate through that being a step removed. Like you learn empathy and stuff from reading and from your characters. And so being able to experience that in a book for a 10-year-old is a fantastic learning ability.
Tell me a little bit, just to get a taste of this, and we'll let you plug this a little bit more at the end. Maybe one of your more recent works. What's something that maybe one of these tough topics that you really dug into in a recent work that you did?
My first book is coming out in March. It's about a girl trying to navigate through her first, she's in middle school. She just started middle school, and there's friendships involved that, with mean kids, but she also has to sort of navigate through, she gets cancer, and they're trying to, her friends stop talking to her. There's a fantasy element to it, though, where, she can go to this fantastical dreamland, which is sort of like a Neverland idea, where critically ill kids can go when they're sleeping. Ooh. And it sort of gives them a way to cope. Okay.
That is fascinating. And we'll definitely let you share at the end where we'll be able to find that once it's released very shortly. But in the meantime, thank you for sharing some of your perspective on this and the stuff that that you really feel inspired to write. So we'll take that and jump into this fantasy inspired, and clearly some fantastical elements. This very, very vague plot, which I'm excited to flesh out. The evil wizard and the prince's bride are unable to cope.
They can't even.
Yeah.
Can't even.
So I guess the initial immediate question is unable to cope with what?
Yeah, that was my first question.
Is it something to do with is the prince's bride also evil? Are they in cahoots? Or are they unable to cope against a common enemy and they have to unite for the first time?
See, the first thought that jumped into my mind was maybe they can't cope with the prince.
Oh. But the prince is just so annoying. It's so difficult.
I like that.
Oh, I'm on board with that. And so like, and you can play with the idea of whether the wizard is truly evil or just evil because that's the title he's taken on.
Right. Or maybe he's
like
just
that.
evil because the prince doesn't like him.
Yeah.
You know?
If it were from the prince's perspective, that he could be the evil wizard trying to make him do something that he doesn't want to do, so he just doesn't like him.
It's
like Toby from The Office.
Right. He's not
he's just
bad
the one
guy.
who tells me he can't do things.
Right.
So how long have the prince and his bride been married then? Is this a new development? Like
yes.
like
they gotta be newlyweds. I mean,
yeah, it's not like the end of their life and she's or like 10 years in and she's like, I'm so fed up.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, this sounds like a new development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they just got married, the wizard just got hired.
The royal wizard.
Yeah, so the prince is difficult in some way, shape, or form. Like my initial thought was just that he's annoying. He's just like just an irritating personality. But maybe there's a level at which like maybe we can expand that to being something where he is like going to like actively damage the kingdom in some way, or is going to do something that's going to hurt. Maybe the bride came not from, maybe she has ties to non-royal groups of people. Like I don't know if she is not royalty, but I would assume that she would be. But maybe she like has a cause that's close to her heart and he's going to hurt that.
What if the prince is so awful because he's under some enchantment that makes him act like a 12-year-old or something? So he's having like little tantrums. Right. He's just like, what is wrong with this kid?
Oh.
What if the evil wizard was the one who placed this enchantment, but it went wrong? It was like in his early days. And he messed something up and hasn't been able to figure out how to fix it. So he left.
Maybe it was when the prince was like 12 or whatever. He froze him at that age, but he continued to grow. So he looks like an adult, but he's not.
And then the prince's bride gets married to him, realizes this is a very difficult situation.
Right. Well, it was a blind marriage. It was
right.
Yeah. And ends up learning a little bit more. Like nobody else in the kingdom knows that he's cursed. The evil wizard was banished, and she has to go find him to see if he can undo it.
Right. Oh my! So, like, I don't know if you guys are on the same page with me going this direction, but like, I'm just thinking of parallels of people coping with family members who have difficulties like that in real life.
Yeah.
And how difficult it is sometimes to take care of them. And like, what if they can't undo the curse?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, if we're going to draw those parallels, I think we can't just lift the curse.
It seems like a natural parallel.
Yeah.
No, but he could learn how to cope. He could learn how to cope with himself and learn how to be like, you know, if you have something like that and then you can do therapy or whatever to sort of grow and learn how to deal with the things.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and his bride would learn how to help run the kingdom and stuff like
as well as give support to the people around him to help him.
Yeah, so maybe the wizard's only evil by reputation because he cursed the prince and then ran away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it must be like, you know, he's got this reputation as the evil wizard so that nobody will let him back into town.
Right.
But it's just that he goofed something up and was sent away. And so now she has to hunt down this evil wizard.
But maybe he really feels guilty or something. Like maybe he's friends with the king or something.
Yeah.
When this happened.
Maybe he's been working this whole time to try and like figure out a way to help him, but
maybe he was the prince's childhood friend.
Ooh.
And he was learning magic, was goofing around with his buddy,
Yeah.
And did something that at first he didn't think was a big deal. And then as they got older, he was like, something's wrong.
Right.
I like our synchronized ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hit on a good plot point when everybody's like, ooh.
So for him, it's not just this terrible mistake. It's something that he did that hurt somebody.
Yeah.
That hurt
I
somebody that he
like
cared about.
this.
What if he helped find the bride? Like he sort of behind the scenes orchestrated that. So the bride and the wizard know each other already. And he was
Yeah.
like, this would be
Interesting.
great for the prince. This
Yeah.
person.
Right, like he met her after he left the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then if it's an arranged marriage and she probably didn't know he probably didn't tell her what the prince was like
Yeah.
when he was
Right.
convincing the marriage.
But maybe his quest was to find someone that would understand and be empathetic with
That would be able
the
to care
prince.
for him.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
Help him.
Ooh.
And help him. So he found a different kingdom or whatever. He went on this big search because at that point he was still trying to figure out a way to reverse it. But then he, was like, uh-oh, we're getting close to this. We need to find somebody.
I like this.
And she doesn't realize until she meets him for the second time that it's the same person. Like he meets her under a pseudonym. And and then so when she hears the name of this evil wizard and where he lives, she doesn't recognize him. And so she journeys to go find him and is like, hold up. I know who you are. You put me in this scenario. What happened?
You guys, I'm totally picturing this like You've Got Mail scenario where he arranged the marriage by letter, and so he and the bride are pen pals, right?
Ooh, I love it.
And so they're consulting with each other. She marries the prince and she's like, oh my gosh, my new husband is going through this, and then he gives her advice and like all this kind of stuff.
That's awesome. It would be cool if you could have the letters in the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. An epistolary novel.
Yeah. Sort of like Dracula.
It might be really fun to have that unfolding like simultaneously, where you learn bits of the backstory as you learn her current journey, and so you see how they kind of tie in together.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, I want to read this now.
Right? Well, let's throw a wrench into our plans, possibly, and choose a title and see if this inspires more or takes us backwards. We'll find out. Our title is Return to a Monastery.
Oh.
So obviously that's where the wizard's hiding out, yes?
Or maybe they hid the prince there for a while. Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, the monastery. As childhood friends, they were playing in a monastery.
Oh, maybe they have to return there to fix it, or not necessarily fix it if we're not going to actually fix it,
but maybe that is the next step. Like not fix it so much, but they go there and they find new understanding, or are told, I'm sorry, you can't actually reverse this curse, but this is what you can do.
Right.
This is how you can work with what you have.
Cope. Yeah, they learn how to cope. It's in the prompt.
Yeah, they learn how to cope. They become able to cope is our ending. Okay, so maybe this happened in, maybe they're playing in an old monastery, maybe an old monastery with magical properties to it.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where they always ran off to. The grown-ups didn't know about it. That kind
of and that's why things went so wrong, was because the wizard boy, there were magical forces at work that he didn't understand how they were going to play into the simple spell he was doing.
Budding little wizard playing.
Yeah. It would have been a harmless spell if not for the magic around them. Right.
Exactly.
So what's up with this monastery? Why is the land around the monastery magic?
Maybe it's like a sort of like a nexus point where they have maybe it takes your sort of feelings and sort of magnifies them. Maybe the evil wizard was wanting to stay this age forever. I wish we could stay in this moment because they were having so much fun. Or something.
Yeah, and they were having a little argument about it, and the prince was like, no, I'm going to grow up and be king and rule you. And
right. And he's like, I don't want you to do that.
I like the possibilities here, because this could have something to do with the monastery being a place to help. I like the connection it has to communication and the difficulties of communication, that you might have an unspoken something that you want to say but don't, and that's what influenced the first time. And then now, perhaps some of this is that there are things that the prince wants to communicate, or that they want to communicate to him, that doesn't happen, that they can't get through it, that there are defense mechanisms in the way that he has big reactions to things, and that they can't actually communicate to each other. And so I'm wondering if there's a way in which the magic of the monastery can be deliberately turned and used to help him and to help the people around him learn how to connect with him better and learn how to help him cope as well as them.
If the magic of the monastery is amplification, say,
yeah,
then I'm also seeing themes of like forgiveness come into play here. Where they have to go back there, and the wizard got to the point where, you know, he admits he was wrong and he wants to make things right with the prince, and even if it doesn't undo what happened to him, but if his intention is pure to be his friend again and want the best for him, like that could do a lot.
What if by doing that and offering forgiveness and all those things, then it doesn't fix the prince, but it starts his time back up. So he can then he'll still act like a 12-year-old, but eventually he will learn how to act like an adult and be able to grow.
Oh.
Okay, I like that a lot.
I do too.
Oh my goodness. Because that has...
It's not a quick fix.
It's not a quick fix.
No,
I mean,
it's
and
not.
You know, like long-term therapy and support tools.
Exactly.
But bringing somebody to a point where everybody is equipped to help them, and they're equipped to help themselves.
They can move past the trauma or whatever it is. Like in a real life parallel, once you get to that point through therapy and help, you can sort of move past and grow.
Hey, Julie, you have your second book right here.
Right?
This would make a great young adult novel.
It would be really fun.
Oh my gosh.
I like that they're able to start the time back up and be like, because then you're still leaning on you can't undo the mistakes that you've made, but you can try to move forward from it and learn from it and say, what do we do next?
Well, and if the bride is already empathetic, going there with the prince can help amplify her empathy and help her really be understanding, which could backfire and be book 2. Then she's like a big empath.
Yeah, you could definitely do some interesting stuff with this.
This world could grow. It definitely could.
And then the evil wizard and the prince's bride and the prince all return back home and continue on. I guess as we've got a couple minutes left in brainstorming section, I want to know, this initially started with us just being like, this prince is just annoying.
Yeah.
Which feels maybe a little, now that we're trying to draw parallels to real life stuff, maybe we need to be a little bit more sensitive than that. Although that's something that people deal with.
It's something that people deal with, and people with issues like the prince sometimes come off as annoying to people who don't know what's going on.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that guy talks all the time.
Right. Or
whatever.
They're super socially awkward. I don't know how to, like, what did they just say? I don't know how to respond to that, you know?
Oh, they're so weird.
Exactly.
Right. But then learning about this could help readers be empathetic toward, I mean, obviously people aren't frozen in time, but like, maybe there's more going on than we know.
I love it.
I do too. I really like this. I think
it feels like an important story, you know, even though it started out silly.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I've got goosebumps and the warm fuzzies, and like,
I want to read this story, and I want to. Oh, here's a question: is any of this told from the prince's perspective?
Ooh,
I think it could be. It would be an interesting write, because you're writing more either young adults or adults for the wizard and the bride, but then you'd have to switch to a middle grade, like 12-year-old boy to get the prince just right.
If you intersperse the narration with, if you are doing letters between the wizard and the bride, you could have journal entries.
Mm-hmm.
Writing in his little diary. They made me get married today.
Ew, she's so gross.
Girls have cooties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are cooties even a thing these days?
I don't know.
I don't know if this is set in these days.
Right. So. That's a good point.
Okay. Well, I think we've found a lot of good threads of this, and so I think we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap this up, and we're gonna toss it over to our listeners. So if you listen to this and you are inspired by this and you want to do something based on it, please share anything with us that you come up with. If this does inspire something, we would love to share it on our blog. We'd love to read bits of it on the podcast. We'd love to share whatever pieces of it you'd be willing to let us share with our audience, because I would love to hear somebody else's take on this and how they interpret it and how this plays out for them. As we start winding down, we're going to scoot on into our story recommendations section of our podcast. This is a time where we're each going to take a second to recommend a story that we think our listeners should check out. Any genre, any medium, any time, it does not matter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to recommend a book that I just finished called Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. It is a young adult novel set in Mississippi, I think. Oh, I'm going to get the state wrong. It's one of the states that Katrina hit, Hurricane Katrina. And it happens in the days right before that. And it's a poor family who the mom is gone, and it's told from the point of view of the one daughter in the family. And it's really engaging and really beautifully told. And it's a more serious story, and I really valued reading it. I thought it was really good and really interesting. So I definitely recommend that. Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. It's an excellent, excellent book. All right, Jenny, what would you like to recommend this week?
Well, as a quick follow-up to last time, I did indeed reread the Egypt game, and it was just as delightful as I remember. But the one I want to recommend this episode, I just recently saw a movie called Deja Vu for the first time, starring Denzel Washington. And he's some kind of federal agent called in to figure out a ferry explodes with people on it, sailors, families. But 10 minutes or so before the ferry exploded, a woman with similar injuries to those in the ferry explosion washed up on shore and was called in. And so, like, why was she killed first? What happened? And he ends up joining a team that is using some crazy technology to be able to look back in the past. They say it's satellites, and then it has to have time to render, so they can watch in real time back 3 hours and 3 days and 6 hours, I think is the limit or something. And so they're using him as a detective to tell them what they should be looking at using this technology. I'm not going to spoil the rest of it, but it is incredibly mind-bendy. It's very smartly written, very exciting movie. I really, really enjoyed it. So if you want a really fun adventure, little bit cerebral kind of crime movie, that's one you should really watch.
That sounds cool.
All right. So Julie, you get a turn as well. You can recommend anything, an old favorite, a new favorite, whatever you would like, just something you think our listeners should check out.
I recently read a book called Connect the Stars by Marissa de los Santos and David Teague. It's a middle grade that deals with hard topics. That's good. But the thing I really loved about it's about these two kids that go to a wilderness camp, and the girl, Audrey, can just tell when anybody's lying. And she kind of gets, like, before she goes, she kind of gets her feelings hurt because her best friend tells her a lie. And it kind of talks about, like, why people lie. She doesn't understand why anybody would lie because it's just bad to her. The other main character is Aaron, and he has, like, this brilliant, more than photographic memory. If he hears something, he can just recall it. But he doesn't understand when to say those things and when to not say those things. He'll just randomly call up facts. And they meet up, they get put in a group with these other two kids, one who's dealing with depression and one who has, like, a sensory processing something. And so they all have kind of their own little things. But I love how the authors talked about these topics. There was a lot of, like, kids not understanding, how to react socially, which I think is a really good thing for this age group. They're like, I don't understand why people are being so weird when I say this is wrong to do or whatever, and it's like, oh my gosh, you guys are idiots. Like the other kids are like, come on, think about it, and they sort of teach each other how to cope and deal with their own problems. It's really fun read.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Sounds good. I'll have to add that to my list. All right, before we go, Julie, first of all, thank you so much again for joining us. We want to make sure and give you a chance to plug anything of your own work, your website, social media, where we can buy your book when it comes out, anything that you'd like to share with our listeners, or where they can find you.
Okay, so I'm working on being good at social media, but I just don't ever want to write. It's just hard. But I do have a Facebook, Instagram, and a Twitter account. Then it's all under author Julie Hahn, which is Hahn. And then I have a website that's also just authorjuliehahn.com. So that's where you can find me. My book will come out March 30th.
And what's your book called?
It's called Fly With Me. It's on Goodreads right now. You can read about the synopsis, whatever I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed writing it, and it has some fun reviews already, which is always fun to see.
Yeah.
Cool.
I will definitely be adding it to my list and keeping an eye out for it for when it's released. Thank you. Well, make sure and put all that information in our episode description so that folks can go and follow you on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and check out your stuff. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, Julie.
Thanks
You
for
brought a
having
lot
me.
to this, and this was a great story to flesh out with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. I like it.
Awesome. All right, folks, that is our episode. As a reminder, you can find us every other Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Follow us on Twitter at WriteThisPod. And if you've been inspired by this episode and have questions or comments or a story or anything else, email us at somebodywritethis@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and we'll see you then.
And as they say, one cannot catch the wind in a mitten.